Welcome to the Healthcare Technology Report, a leading information source on healthcare technology companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Dr. Lishan Aklog, Chairman, CEO, and Co-Founder of PAVmed, a diversified medical technology company developing devices, diagnostics, and digital health solutions. Its subsidiary, Lucid Diagnostics, has created the first commercial tools for widespread early detection of esophageal precancer. Lishan has co-founded and scaled multiple healthcare companies, including the team that developed the AngioVac system, and earlier served as a cardiac surgeon at Harvard Medical School and Mount Sinai. He also serves on the board of AdvaMed, the leading MedTech trade association, and is an investor of dozens of patents. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked the episode, click to follow. Lishan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
You've got a really interesting background in that it seems like perhaps your career was in two phases, one as a physician and then one as an entrepreneur and executive. And frequently we find that great med tech companies or companies in the medical space are started by physicians. Maybe tell us a little bit about your journey from physician all the way through to present day.
Sure. Yeah, I think you can characterize it as two phases, but also a bit of a windy road. It's been a fun and interesting journey. So you're right. I was a heart surgeon, cardiac surgeon for many years. I was in academic practice at various academic institutions around the country. But cardiac surgery is a very technology-heavy industry. We use pretty complicated tools to stop the heart and work on it and turn it back on. And so, frankly, that was one of the things that attracted me about heart surgery was the opportunity for technological innovation. And so I was always interested in medical technologies and kind of driven to always ask the question, like, how can we do things better? Why do we do things a certain way? And while I was a cardiac surgeon, I developed some expertise and some notoriety around the treatment of blood clots to the lungs, pulmonary embolism, and how to do surgery for that. And one day I was, thinking, well, why are we opening somebody's chest and putting them on the heart-lung machine? There must be some other way we could do this by inserting something through a catheter that could suck out these big blood clots. Fast forward, that led to an invention called AngioVac that I developed. And I, having for years been involved with the MedTech industry in a consulting form and serving on MABs, and just, I found myself in a situation where I had one of my own ideas trying to figure out how to navigate it. And it took several years, because they don't train you that in medical school. You have a good idea, how do you actually take it forward? But ultimately, I got partnered with some colleagues, one of my surgical colleagues, as well as a MedTech colleague. And while we were still practicing heart surgeons, we started a company called Vortex Medical and navigated the process of getting this technology developed and getting it quickly through FDA and humans, and eventually sold it to AngioDynamics. Now it's become standard of care for various types of abnormalities and infections in the heart. And it's been really fun and exciting to see that. And it was really at that point that I said, not only is this fun and interesting and sort of aligned with my interest in technology, but I realize you can have an impact potentially even on a larger scale than you can as a surgeon. And that's when I decided to hang up the scalpel and try my hands at entrepreneurship and being an executive and building and running companies. The good news and the bad news about that experience is that it was wildly successful and happened quickly and was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but if you rank it on the sort of the scale of things, everything went really, really smoothly and really quickly. But in some ways, that was a little bit of a seduction, right? Because, you realize in other situations that things don't always go quite that well, and you have to figure out how to navigate the challenges.
It's rare that it goes that smoothly and that you had your first shot, it worked out. And do you attribute that to that partnership that you had with the folks you teamed up with?
Well, look, some of it was luck, but a lot of your luck is made. And we were just very careful at the beginning to map out the tactics to not get caught up in all the okay, we're a company, let's get a logo, let's get a video animation of our thing, and just kind of really hone in on what actually gets us from A to B. And we went from a PowerPoint and raising $3.5 million in capital to first in human, actually at my alma mater, which was fun, at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, in 18 months. Through FDA in 18 months, and we sold the company a few years later. So yeah, part of it was just our frame of mind and the way we approach things and the kind of the efficient and not getting caught up in too many of the trappings. And when people talk to me and look for advice, that's one of the things don't get caught up in all that. Oh my God, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting a company, and worry about the trappings, focus on how to get from A to B to C, as efficiently as possible. And we were fortunate that we didn't encounter challenges that diverted us from that path.
It seems like you're now involved with like a portfolio of companies. You have like a holding company structure. You also have PAVmed, which seems like you're trying to accelerate from concept to commercialization, maybe, multiple different devices. Maybe, shed some light on what you're involved with currently.
Yeah, I'll give you just a little bit of a brief history on that. So after we sold Vortex and we're like, okay, what's the next chapter? We created PAVmed as this entity to kind of be a long-term vehicle. So we didn't have to kind of go raise capital for one product and then do another product. We had this vision of building a portfolio through our own ideas, but also going out and finding technologies from academic medical centers and places within our network that we had access. We knew we would have access to technologies. And we also did the very contrarian thing, which is we went public very, very early on, before, frankly, we had anything to speak of. And we've been fortunate that the public markets have provided us with the capital that we've needed to move things forward. So PAVmed is structured like that. But one of the things that's happened, we do have multiple technologies under PAVmed. We have a digital health company, and we have an incubator. But what we found was this technology from Case Western Reserve University that ultimately turned into our biggest subsidiary and bulk of the value that we've created, which is Lucid Diagnostics, which is a technology for detecting the precancerous conditions of the esophagus that allow us to detect those and then monitor and treat them so that those patients go on to progress to cancer. So Lucid is our largest enterprise right now. It's a subsidiary. It's also public. So I have the good fortune of having two public companies that I do quarterly calls on every quarter and all the work that goes into that. But Lucid has been an amazing experience. Now, talk about challenges. There's a lot of challenges with regard to reimbursement pathways and commercialization and so forth. But we're at the precipice right now of getting Medicare coverage and being able to provide tens of millions of patients who are candidates who are at high risk for developing esophageal cancer access to this groundbreaking technology. So it really did play out the way we had planned, and with regard to being able to bring in these technologies and advance them towards commercialization.
And what does the rest of the portfolio or pipeline look like? It seems like primarily you're working on Lucid, but there's other things brewing.
Yeah. So we have a subsidiary called Veris Health, and Veris Health is a digital health company that seeks to enhance cancer care. It takes the digital health model, which can be somewhat diffuse, right? Chronic care and mental health and other areas, which I'm not denigrating any of that, but those are kind of hard because they're a bit nebulous. Here, you're taking patients who are diagnosed with cancer, are going to have 6 months, a year, maybe a year and a half of highly intensive therapy that carries significant medical risks that are associated with that therapy, and trying to implement digital health tools to improve that care. It is kind of crazy. We give people these sometimes toxic treatments and they go to their doctor once a month, maybe once every couple of weeks. And in the interim, it's a bit of a black box. They don't check in unless something bad happens. So Veris has this software platform that allows continuous monitoring. Patients to collect physiologic data at home, blood pressure, heart rate, activity, and so forth. And that all gets fed in real time to their oncologist so they can track things and pick up potential complications from their therapy earlier. And we also are developing a proprietary technology around an implantable monitor that gets implanted at the time of typically these patients get a long-term port to get their therapy. And so it basically converts that port into a smart port. So it's collecting that physiologic data and uploading it into the platform in real time. And so that's very exciting. We have a partnership with Ohio State University, which is the third largest cancer center in the country. We're just about ready to launch that commercially in partnership with them. And we're looking to get the implantable device through the FDA and on the market in 2026, next year.
Mm-hmm. Did you consider taking private money? Just curious, why you decided to go the public route.
Yeah, that's worth talking about. So we felt that our model did not fit within sort of a bit of the cookie cutter VC startup world. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you just one proof of that without getting too deep into it. If we had started PAVmed was started initially with traditional medical devices. And when the opportunity for Lucid came up, Lucid, the technology includes a medical device, a really novel way to collect cells within a minute in an office setting instead of an endoscopy. But it also includes a molecular genetic test, that's run in a laboratory and uses the latest and next generation sequencing to interrogate cells and do sequencing. We had no prior experience with that. And so if we were a VC-backed company doing a couple of medical devices and we said, hey, investors, we're going to go tack in this direction and we're going to go become a diagnostic company, that wouldn't have worked. So we had, by accessing the public markets, we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars over the years, and we've done so in a way that is consistent with our model and allows us to pursue that. And that's not to say we don't have strong long-term investors who are private investors. Lucid has been operating in a very tough capital markets from the time it did its IPO in 2021. Diagnostics, small cap diagnostics have been very, very difficult to raise capital in that environment. So we do have private investors who we've aggregated and built relationships with, who have participated in financings into our public vehicle, a little bit different than the traditional follow-on offerings. We just did a financing last week for $27 million. That was a traditional public financing. Those have been few and far between because the markets have been super tough on that. So I would do it again. It's a very contrarian path that we took, but we would not be here today with the opportunities that we have forward and the opportunities to provide value to our shareholders if we hadn't taken that contrarian route.
We'll be interested to hear about the team supporting this platform approach. Is it kind of like finding folks that have complementary skills and, experience to yours?
It's both. It's a combination. Let me see if I can say that succinctly. Look, we've built a team, right? We started with half a dozen people when PAVmed got started, not even half a dozen. And then, now we have about 120 employees across the enterprise. Most of them are working within Lucid. And what we've done is we've built an executive leadership team that has broad skills, but also deep skills in particular areas. We just hired a new senior VP of market access and government affairs, who has 25 years of experience in that realm. We have incredibly experienced people on the finance side, who have been able to help me be creative on financings and so forth. So that operates through a management services model, a shared services model at the PAVmed level. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of an individual subsidiary like Lucid that has its own highly focused needs, we bring an expertise that has expertise along those lines. So we have a chief scientific officer at Lucid who's a highly accomplished molecular biologist who runs our laboratory. Our entire commercial team is housed, and the laboratory operations are housed specifically within Lucid, and that's where that particular part of our team resides. But at the parent level, we also have some ability to have economies of scale and shared experiences where the subsidiaries can work together and create some economies of scale and some value, collective value between the subsidiaries.
It seems like you moved into this kind of new role as kind of a corporate executive fairly smoothly, and you've almost fully transitioned. Are there parts of being a physician that you miss, or maybe you still do kind of practice?
No, I don't practice. And the reason for that is you can't be half a heart surgeon, right? There's certain specialties, and I have friends who are colleagues who've done similar things to what I've done, where they, they're an ER doc and they still do, one shift a week to keep their clinical skills active. You can't really do that in cardiac surgery. So I guess you might imagine I get asked that question a lot, and to be a bit snarky about it, I miss 49% of it. I really do miss patient care. I actually love being a doctor and engaging with patients. And as I told you, one of the things that convinced me to shift my career was an understanding that there would be an opportunity to help patients broadly. But I mentioned with AngioVac, there were tens of thousands of patients who are getting that therapy every year. With Lucid, we have an opportunity to save thousands of lives, from detecting precancer. So, that's at our core, we are focused on patients in a somewhat different way. I also like the surgery. Surgery is actually quite gratifying, and the physical task of doing that. But, we joke that we've built a surgical company because we actually have 3 surgeons in our executive team and 2 other physicians. And, there's a certain mentality in surgery that's kind of a bias to action, being able to act on limited information and so forth, that are kind of part of how surgeons are wired. And we've kind of built our company a little bit around that psyche as well. So that served me well, I think, in making that transition.
Can you share a bit more around the long-term vision for PAVmed? Do you think this is going to be kind of this permanent entity? You referenced it earlier that you wanted one company that you would fund.
I think so. I think the pathway forward is quite a bit clearer for Lucid right now because Lucid's fully commercial. It's about to get Medicare coverage, and there'll be an opportunity for us to really put our foot on the gas and build a large enterprise at the Lucid level. And we do have hope that PAVmed will benefit from Lucid's success because PAVmed remains the largest shareholder of Lucid, and Lucid's success will give PAVmed the opportunity and the value and access to capital to continue. But we continue to be committed to the model of bringing in new technologies. PAVmed is in the process of licensing. We announced a letter of intent with Duke University and in partnership with a prominent UNC gastroenterologist on technology to identify esophageal precancer using a novel imaging optical technology. That's at PAVmed. It's synergistic with Lucid, but I think that this is literally a few weeks ago. That's a pretty good example of PAVmed is still doing what we intended to do at PAVmed, bringing in new technologies, in this case, one that's synergistic with one of its subsidiaries. Lucid is focused on the molecular diagnostic side. We didn't want to distract Lucid from that, but if this technology advances to where it needs to go, there'll be opportunities for PAVmed and Lucid to work together on bringing that technology to patients. So yeah, we're still moving forward, even though Lucid occupies the majority of our time right now. The PAVmed thesis is still alive and well.
Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Sure. That's a little bit hard to pinpoint. I'm sure most people waffle a little bit when you ask them that question. I've had incredible mentors over the years, particularly during my surgical training, but I'll mention one. There's a surgeon in the UK named Sir Magdi Yaqub. He's an Egyptian-born surgeon who came to the UK and became literally one of the most prominent heart surgeons in history. I got a chance to spend nearly a year with him during my training in the late 90s. And everything about him, he has characteristics that I try to emulate in everything I do. He is incredibly smart, but gentle. He's a gentleman. He cares about his patients. He believes in science. He runs a laboratory at the same time he's doing surgery. He didn't end up, where I am now on the industry side, but he was always an innovator. He was always asking and had a bit of an audacity to him that I try to emulate. And also, our roots are similar. I mean, he came from Egypt. I was born in Ethiopia, and both had success in the Western world in our chosen areas. So if I had to pick one, since you put a gun to my head, I would say Sir Magdi Yaqub.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
I'm very passionate about human rights. I grew up in Ethiopia in the 70s when there was a lot of political violence. My family suffered from that. I left as a teenager because of that. I'm proud to be an American, and America has done incredible things and provided me with opportunities that we didn't necessarily have, not economic so much as freedom and political opportunities. So I've been active through my charitable givings and serving in the human rights community. There's important work to be done, greater than ever in my lifetime. I mean, the threats right now to people, the civilian populations around the world with regard to human rights and dignity is as threatened as it's ever been in my lifetime. And I'm very committed to that.
Well, Lishan, I want to thank you again for taking the time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.